When did a woman's shelter fail you? I waited until my husband passed out drunk on the couch to whisper to my twin girls, "We're going to get ice cream." We slipped out the front door and walked straight to the women's DV shelter 3 blocks away. We rushed up to the receptionist and I breathed a sigh of relief. I could feel my hands shaking as I whispered, "He's in an alcohol coma, but as soon as he realizes I'm gone, we're screwed." My voice cracked on the last word. The receptionist looked up from her computer, and my stomach dropped. It was Patricia, my husband's 25-year-old ex-girlfriend. Patricia's eyes traveled from my bruised jaw to my daughters clinging to my legs. Sophie was clutching her teddy bear, the one with dried blood on it from last week when he'd thrown it at the wall right after hitting her. Elise just stared at the floor. "Please hide us," I begged. "Just for tonight. He'll kill us when he finds us." That's when I heard it. The familiar rumble of his truck pulling into the parking lot. Through the window, I could see him parking right in front, engine running. The hunting rifle was probably still in the back seat where he always kept it. Beep. The car horn honked. Both girls started crying. Patricia glanced at the parking lot, then back at her desk. "We need intake forms first." "Patricia, please, he's right there." "I can't just hide people. There's a process." Then came the second honk, longer and angrier. Through the window, I could see him laughing, patting his belt, something he only did before he showed us who owns who. "Please, Patricia. He's going to kill us." Sophie tugged on Patricia's shirt with her tiny hand. "Please let my mommy in. You don't even have to take me. Just take mommy so daddy doesn't hurt her again." Patricia pulled away like she'd been burned. She leaned forward and hissed, "You stole my family. Find your own shelter." I couldn't breathe. This wasn't happening. Sophie, my brave little 5-year-old, tried again. "I'll go back to daddy. I'll be good. Just please hide mommy." The third honk was so long and angry that Elise wet herself, the warm liquid pooling on Patricia's clean floor. Through the window, David was holding up his phone, taking pictures of us, grinning evilly. Patricia's nose wrinkled in disgust. "Not my problem. Maybe David will finally see what kind of mother you really are." The words hit me like a physical blow. She was really going to do this. She was going to send us back to him because of something that happened 8 years ago. Elise suddenly found her voice, the words tumbling out between sobs. "Daddy locks us in the closet when mommy tries to call anyone. It's dark, and Sophie can't breathe good in there." Her tiny hand gripped mine tighter. "Last time he kept us there all night because mommy tried to call grandma." Sophie nodded, adding in her small voice, "He broke my teddy when I cried too loud. And he says if we tell anyone at school, he'll hurt mommy worse." She held up the blood-stained bear-like evidence. "He made me watch." The fourth honk made all 3 of us jump. Through the window, I could see him getting out of the truck, stretching like he had all the time in the world. "Please," I begged Patricia one last time. "They're babies. Even if you hate me, please don't do this to them." Elise dropped to her knees on the wet floor, not caring about her accident. "Please, Miss Patricia. I promise I'll be quiet. I won't eat anything. I won't even use the bathroom." Her voice was so small. "Daddy gets really mad after he drinks the smelly bottles. He threw the TV at mommy's head last time." Sophie joined her sister on the floor, both of them kneeling in front of Patricia's desk. "We can sleep under a table. We're really small. No one will even know we're here." She was crying so hard she could barely get the words out. "Please don't make us go back. Please, please, please." Through the window, I saw him walking toward the door, that dangerous calm on his face that always came before the worst violence. Elise grabbed Patricia's shoe. "He has a gun in the car. He said he'd use it if mommy ever tried to leave again." But Patricia just pulled her foot away and stood up. "Security!" she called out. "We have a situation here. This woman is refusing to leave." My legs went weak. He was at the door now, trying the handle, finding it locked, smiling at me through the glass. I grabbed both girls, who were still on their knees begging, and pulled them up. There was nowhere to run. I grabbed both girls' hands and yanked them up from the floor, pulling them so close against my legs I can feel them shaking. Through the glass door, David is leaning back against his truck with his arms crossed, that smile on his face that makes my stomach twist. Patricia stares at her computer screen like we're invisible, like my daughters aren't standing here soaking wet and crying. I realize she's actually going to do this. She's going to let him take us, and something breaks open in my chest. My eyes dart around the lobby looking for anything, any way out, and that's when I see it. Behind Patricia's desk, there's a hallway with a gray sign that says, "Staff Only," in white letters. There has to be another exit back there, a back door, something. Sophie is still crying into her bloody teddy bear, and Elise just stands frozen in her wet pants, staring at nothing. I make a decision right then that we're not leaving this building no matter what Patricia says or does. We're staying inside where there are walls and locks between us and him. Patricia reaches across her desk for her phone and I hear her voice, flat and bored, saying the word security, like she's reporting someone who parked in the wrong spot. My hands are shaking so bad I can barely keep hold of the girls, but I force my knees to lock, force myself to stay standing. Through the window, David honks the horn again, longer this time, and I watch his hand move toward the passenger seat. I know exactly what he's reaching for because I've seen that rifle 100 times, seen him clean it at the kitchen table while he drinks, seen him load it before going hunting. The girls both flinch at the honk, and Sophie makes a small, scared sound. A man appears from that staff hallway, and I see his name tag says Hank in black letters. He's older, maybe 60-something, with gray hair and a security guard uniform that looks a little too big. His eyes are kind, though, really kind, and they move fast, taking everything in. He looks at Patricia, then at me, and my daughters pressed against my legs, then out the window at David's truck. Something changes in his face. His mouth gets tight and his eyes go hard. He pulls a radio off his belt in one smooth motion. Hank speaks into the radio in a quiet voice, calm but serious, giving an address and saying something about a possible DV situation and an armed subject in a vehicle. He says, "Request immediate police response." And I feel something loosen in my chest just a tiny bit. Patricia starts to say something, her mouth opening with that annoyed look, but Hank holds up one hand without even glancing at her. She stops talking. He moves his body between us and the glass door, putting himself right in the middle, and tells me in that same calm voice to move away from the windows. His voice is gentle but firm, like he knows exactly what he's doing. I pull Sophie and Elise toward the corner of the lobby, the spot where the wall blocks the view from outside. My legs feel like they might give out any second, but I keep moving. Hank walks to the door, and I hear the click of the lock turning from the inside. Outside, David's truck door slams open, the sound making both girls jump. Sophie buries her whole face in my shirt, her little hands gripping the fabric so tight. Elise makes this small whimpering sound that reminds me of a hurt animal, and it breaks something inside me. I fumble my phone out of my pocket, my fingers shaking so bad I almost drop it. I open the text app even though Hank already called because I need to do something, need to help somehow. I type out David's truck description, the color and model, and then in all caps I type, "He has a rifle in the back seat." My fingers are trembling so much I have to delete and retype it twice before it's right. I hit send to 911 and then I hear him. His footsteps on the pavement outside, heavy boots getting closer. Then his fist hits the door, boom, 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 so hard the glass shakes. David's voice comes through the door, and I know that tone, that fake calm sound he uses right before everything explodes. He's saying something about coming home and talking, his voice all smooth and friendly. Through the window, I can see him smiling and waving at us like we're old friends meeting up for coffee. Hank lifts his radio again and speaks into it, his voice still calm, saying the subject is at the door now attempting contact. I crouch down with the girls and wrap my arms around both of them. I remember what their kindergarten teacher taught them for when they get scared, the breathing thing. I start counting out loud, my voice shaky but trying to stay steady. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. Sophie grips her teddy bear with both hands and starts counting with me in a whisper, her voice so small. 1, 2, 3, 4. Elise doesn't say anything, but I watch her tiny chest moving up and down with the pattern, following along. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. We do it again and again, huddled in the corner while David keeps talking through the door. Then I hear it. Sirens in the distance getting louder. David's whole body changes, and I can see it through the window even from the corner. His shoulders relax and his hands come up in this innocent gesture, palms out like he's surrendering. He backs away from the door real slow, taking his time, and walks back toward his truck. He's moving casual now, like he's just some regular guy who stopped by to visit and decided to leave. Like he wasn't just pounding on the door with his fist. Like there isn't a rifle in his back seat. The sirens get closer and louder, and I hold my daughters tighter, still counting breaths, waiting for what happens next. The sirens get so loud they hurt my ears, and then suddenly 2 police cars swing into the parking lot with their lights spinning red and blue across everything. I watch through the window as 4 officers get out, and I can see their hands hovering near their belts where their weapons are. David is leaning against his truck now with his arms crossed like he's just some regular guy waiting for a friend to show up. One officer walks toward him while another heads straight for the shelter entrance. The 3rd and 4th officers spread out, and I realize they're making sure he can't run. Patricia's voice cuts through the lobby, and it's sharp and angry. She says this is all unnecessary drama, and she should have just processed us normally like any other client. Hank doesn't even turn his head to look at her. His eyes stay locked on David through the window, and his hand is still on his radio. I want to scream at Patricia that she was going to send us back to die, but I'm using every bit of energy I have left to keep the girls calm and keep myself standing upright. My legs feel like they might give out any second, but I force them to hold me. Sophie is still counting breaths with me, and Elise has stopped making that whimpering sound, but her whole body is shaking against my leg. A female officer knocks hard on the glass door, and Hank moves fast to unlock it and let her in. Her badge says Officer Vega, and she has dark hair pulled back so tight it must hurt. She takes one look at my bruised jaw and then down at the girls clinging to my legs, and her whole expression changes and goes hard. She turns to Hank and asks what he saw, and he tells her everything in clear factual terms without any drama or emotion. He describes how we arrived scared, how Patricia refused to help, how David showed up and started honking and pounding on the door, how he called it in as a possible DV situation with an armed subject. Officer Vega is writing in a small notebook and nodding as he talks. When he mentions the rifle, her pen stops moving for just a second, and then she writes faster. Officer Vega turns to me and asks directly if there are weapons in the vehicle, and I tell her about the hunting rifle he always keeps in the back seat behind the driver's side. My voice comes out as a whisper, and I have to repeat it louder so she can hear me. She lifts her radio to her mouth and speaks into it, telling her partner outside about the rifle and giving the exact location I described. Through the window, I see the other officer's whole posture change as he's talking to David. His hand moves closer to his weapon, and he takes a step back to create more distance. They're taking this seriously now. They believe me. Patricia moves forward and tries to insert herself into the conversation. Her voice is getting louder as she tells Officer Vega that I showed up without an appointment and refused to follow proper intake procedures. She's making it sound like I'm the problem, like I'm some difficult client who wouldn't cooperate. Officer Vega turns to her, and the look on her face could freeze fire. She says in a calm but firm voice that she'll get Patricia's statement in a moment, but right now she needs to focus on the immediate safety threat. Patricia's mouth snaps shut, but I can see rage building in her eyes like a storm getting ready to break. She crosses her arms and steps back, but she's staring at me with pure hatred. Hank shifts his weight uncomfortably, and I see him looking at Patricia like he's seeing her clearly for the first time, like he's realizing what she almost did to us. Through the window, I watch the officers make David do a field sobriety test right there in the parking lot. They have him walk in a straight line heel to toe and he's swaying sideways. Then they make him touch his nose with his finger and he misses twice. When they tell him to stand on one leg, he nearly falls over completely. He's clearly still drunk from passing out on our couch earlier, and the officers can see it. Officer Vega explains to me in a quiet voice that this gives them probable cause to search the vehicle. She says it like she's trying to reassure me that they're doing everything by the book. I nod and hold my daughters tighter. Sophie has stopped crying, but her face is still buried in my shirt. The officer outside opens David's truck door and reaches into the back seat with careful, practiced movements. I see him pull out the rifle and my stomach drops even though I knew it was there. He handles it like he's done this 1,000 times before, checking it and securing it in some way I can't quite see from here. Then he pulls out handcuffs and tells David to turn around and put his hands behind his back. David's face changes in an instant. The fake calm, casual pose disappears and genuine rage takes over. His face goes red and I can see him yelling something at the officers even though I can't hear the words through the glass. They get the handcuffs on him anyway and walk him toward one of the police cars. I feel Sophie's grip on my hand loosen just slightly. Not a lot, but enough that I notice. Officer Vega asks if I'm willing to give a statement and I nod even though my voice feels stuck in my throat. She pulls out her notepad again and starts asking questions in a gentle but thorough way. She asks how long the abuse has been happening and I tell her since before the girls were born. She asks if he's threatened us with weapons before, and I tell her yes, multiple times, especially when he's been drinking. She asks why we came here tonight and I explain about waiting until he passed out, about telling the girls we were getting ice cream, about having nowhere else to go. I answer everything while the girls stay pressed against my legs. Elise is still shaking and Sophie keeps touching my hand like she needs to make sure I'm still there. Patricia interrupts again and her voice is rising as she tells Officer Vega that I stole her family 8 years ago, and this is all just manipulation to get attention. She's saying I'm making everything up, that David would never hurt anyone, that I'm the real problem. Officer Vega's expression doesn't change at all, but she writes something in her notepad. Hank shifts uncomfortably and I see him looking at Patricia like he's seeing her clearly for the first time tonight. His face shows something like disappointment or maybe disgust. Patricia keeps talking, but Officer Vega holds up one hand to stop her, and Patricia finally goes quiet. The silence feels thick and heavy. Officer Vega puts her notepad away and pulls out her phone. She asks if she can take photos of my bruised jaw for documentation, and I nod. The camera flash makes me blink. Then she crouches down to Sophie's level and asks in the gentlest voice if she can photograph the teddy bear. Sophie holds it out with both hands trembling, and Officer Vega is so careful and kind. She explains to Sophie that the bear is going to help keep her and her sister and her mommy safe. She takes several photos of the dried blood on the fur, and then she pulls out a clear plastic bag and asks if it's okay to keep the bear for evidence. Sophie looks at me with big, scared eyes, and I nod and tell her it's okay. Officer Vega seals the bear in the bag and labels it with a marker. Then she walks out to her patrol car and comes back with a small stuffed dog, brown and soft-looking. She gives it to Sophie and tells her she's very brave. Sophie hugs the new dog tight, and I feel something in my chest crack open just a little bit. Officer Vega puts her notepad away and looks at me with a serious expression. She says she needs to call Child Protective Services because the girls witnessed violence and were harmed, and it's mandatory by law. My whole body goes cold and I feel panic rising in my throat because I know what CPS means. They take kids away from their mothers and I just got us out and now they're going to split us up anyway. Officer Vega must see something in my face because she crouches down to my level and her voice gets softer. She explains that CPS's goal is keeping families together safely, not separation. She says they want to help create a safety plan so we can stay together. I'm still shaking, but I nod because what choice do I have? Officer Vega pulls out her phone and steps away to make the call while Hank stays near us. I hold both girls close and try to keep breathing. Sophie is still clutching the new stuffed dog, and Elise has stopped shaking as much, but she's leaning all her weight against my leg. Officer Vega comes back after a few minutes and explains that we need to go to the hospital for medical documentation of my injuries. I want to argue because all I want is to find somewhere safe to sleep, but she says the photos and medical records will be crucial for getting a protective order tomorrow morning. The words protective order make something click in my brain, and I realize this is real legal protection, not just hiding. I agree to go. Hank speaks up and offers to escort us to the police car through the staff corridor so we don't have to walk past David's truck in the parking lot. Officer Vega thanks him and we start gathering the few things we have. Just as we're about to leave through the staff hallway, a woman in professional clothes walks in through the front door. She's maybe in her 40s with dark hair pulled back and she's wearing a blazer even though it's late at night. She walks straight to the desk and introduces herself as Letitia Campbell, the shelter supervisor. She asks what happened and her voice is calm but firm. Hank steps forward and gives her a quiet summary of everything. He explains about Patricia refusing intake, about David arriving with the rifle, about the girls begging on their knees, about calling police. Patricia is still standing behind the desk with her arms crossed and her face is red. Letitia's face goes pale as she listens to Hank's description. She looks at me and the girls and I see her jaw tighten. She asks Patricia if this account is accurate, and Patricia starts to say something about procedures and intake forms, but Letitia holds up one hand to stop her. Letitia pulls Patricia aside toward the staff hallway, and I can hear their voices even though they're trying to keep it private. Patricia's voice rises and she's saying something defensive about personal history and following protocol. Letitia says something sharp and quiet that I can't make out, but her tone is ice cold. Then Letitia's voice gets louder and she tells Patricia to go home immediately. Patricia grabs her purse from under the desk and storms toward the staff entrance. As she passes us, she shoots me a look of pure hatred that makes me step back. The door slams behind her. Letitia comes back and apologizes directly to me. She says she's arranging for us to transfer to a partner shelter tomorrow, and she'll personally handle the intake. Officer Vega thanks her and says we need to get to the hospital now. Letitia nods and says she'll follow up with us in the morning. The police car ride is quiet. Officer Vega drives carefully, and Hank followed us out to make sure we got into the car safely. The girls sit on either side of me in the back seat, and Sophie keeps touching the stuffed dog's ears. At the hospital emergency room, a nurse sees the police escort and takes us back quickly without making us wait in the lobby. She's maybe in her 30s with kind eyes, and she moves efficiently. She leads us to a private exam room and asks me to describe when each injury happened. I point to the bruise on my jaw and tell her 3 days ago when I asked about grocery money. I show her the bruises on my upper arms and explain those are from last week when he grabbed me to stop me from leaving the bedroom. The girls sit in plastic chairs nearby, and they're so exhausted but too scared to sleep. Elise is still in her wet clothes, and the nurse brings her a hospital gown and some scrub pants that are way too big. The nurse documents everything with photos and measurements, and she's professional but not cold. She asks questions in a gentle way that doesn't make me feel stupid or judged. A woman with a warm smile arrives while the nurse is finishing up. She introduces herself as Clara Hammond from Child Protective Services. I tense up immediately and pull the girls closer, but Clara sits down in a chair so she's at my level instead of standing over us. She explains that she's here to help create a safety plan, not to remove the girls. Her voice is calm and matter-of-fact. She asks if I have family or friends who could help, and I have to admit I've been isolated for years. David didn't like me talking to my mom or my old friends from before we got married. Clara writes this down, but she doesn't look shocked or disappointed. She just nods like she's heard this before. She says isolation is a common control tactic, and we can work on rebuilding those connections safely. Clara asks if she can interview the girls separately, and my stomach clenches, but I know I have to let her. She takes Elise first, and they go to a small consultation room down the hall. Sophie stays with me and curls up in my lap, even though she's getting too big for that. I watch the clock and count the minutes. Elise is gone for maybe 10 minutes, and when they come back, Clara's face looks sad but professional. Then she takes Sophie, who clutches the stuffed dog Officer Vega gave her. I sit in the hospital chair and feel like I might throw up. The nurse brings me a cup of water and sits with me but doesn't try to make small talk. Sophie is gone longer, maybe 15 minutes, and when she comes back, her eyes are red, but she's not crying anymore. Clara gives me a small nod that I think means the girls did okay. While Clara is writing up her notes, another woman arrives. She's younger than Clara, maybe late 20s, and she's carrying a messenger bag. She introduces herself as Faye Coleman, a domestic violence advocate. She hands me a burner phone still in its plastic package and a folder full of papers and pamphlets. She sits down next to me and explains that David will probably bond out of jail quickly, maybe within 24 hours. She says I need to file for an emergency protective order first thing in the morning at the courthouse. The way she says it is matter-of-fact but not scary. She's not trying to panic me, just giving me information I need to know. She opens the folder and shows me the protective order paperwork and explains what each section means. Faye sits with me and helps me understand what happens next. She goes through the protective order hearing process and explains the criminal charges against David and talks about safety planning for when he gets out. She's treating me like someone capable of making decisions instead of a helpless victim who needs to be rescued. It's the first time tonight I feel like maybe I can actually do this. She asks me questions about where we'll stay and whether I have access to money and what my work situation is. Requested Reads is on Spotify now. Check out link in the description or comments. I answer honestly even though some of the answers are embarrassing. Faye just writes everything down and doesn't judge. She says we'll figure it out one step at a time. Officer Vega comes back to check on us and she has an update. She explains that David is being held on DUI charges, domestic violence, and child endangerment. The combination of charges means his bond will be higher than usual, but she warns me that he'll likely bond out within 24 hours. She says we need to move fast on the protective order. My brief moment of relief from hearing he's in jail evaporates when I realize he could be out by tomorrow night. Officer Vega sees my face and reminds me that once the protective order is in place, any contact from him will result in immediate arrest. She gives me her card with her direct number written on the back. Clara finishes her paperwork and says she'll check in with us tomorrow afternoon. Faye says she'll meet me at the courthouse at 9 in the morning to help with the protective order filing. Clara comes back with both girls and sits down across from us in the hospital waiting area. She pulls out a yellow legal pad and clicks her pen. She asks where we'll stay tonight, and I realize I have no answer because the shelter isn't safe anymore. Faye jumps in before I can panic and says she can arrange a motel voucher through the advocacy program. Clara writes this down and keeps asking questions about my work situation, and whether I have access to our bank accounts, and if David knows where my family lives. I answer everything as honestly as I can, even though some of it is embarrassing. She makes notes about everything and then tears off the top sheets and hands them to me as a copy. She says this is our safety plan and we'll update it as things change. Faye's phone rings and she glances at the screen before putting it on speaker. Letitia's voice comes through and she's talking fast and apologizing over and over. She explains that Patricia has been placed on immediate administrative leave pending a full investigation. Faye asks about our transfer, and Letitia says she's personally arranging for us to move to a partner shelter in the next county tomorrow, where David won't know to look. I manage to say thank you, and my voice cracks on both words. Letitia says she'll call tomorrow with the details and hangs up. The clock on the wall shows it's past midnight when the nurse finally brings our discharge papers. Officer Vega appears with a plastic bag of donated clothes from the hospital's emergency supply. T-shirts and sweatpants that don't fit right, but they're clean and they're ours. She leads us out through a side door to avoid the main waiting room, and we climb into her patrol car. The girls curl up in the back seat, and I sit in front watching streetlights pass by. She drives to a motel on the edge of town with exterior doors and a flickering neon sign that says vacancy. She walks us to room 127 and takes the key from me to unlock it. She checks the bathroom and looks under both beds and tests the window locks before handing the key back. She reminds me to call 911 if anything happens, and then she's gone. I lock the door and slide the chain and push one of the chairs under the door handle like I've seen in movies. I check the window locks twice, even though Officer Vega just checked them. The girls don't even take off their shoes before they collapse onto one of the double beds. I sit on the other bed and pull the burner phone out of the package. My hands shake as I peel off the plastic and power it on. I save Faye's number first, and then Officer Vega's number as my only two contacts. My body feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds and every muscle is screaming for sleep, but my brain won't shut off. I sit against the headboard and make a mental list of what we have. The clothes on our backs that smell like hospital and fear. The donated bag with ill-fitting shirts and pants. The burner phone with 2 numbers saved. Sophie's new stuffed dog and Elisa's wet clothes in a plastic bag. The folder of papers about protective orders and resources and safety planning. It's almost nothing, but it's more than we had 6 hours ago when we walked out our front door. Sophie and Elise are asleep now, curled together in the middle of the bed like they used to do when they were babies. I pull out the protective order paperwork from the folder and carry it to the bathroom. I turn on the light and close the door most of the way so it won't wake them. I sit on the closed toilet lid and start filling out the forms. My hand shakes so badly the pen keeps slipping, but I force myself to write down every incident I can remember. The time he threw the TV. The night he locked them in the closet for 8 hours. The threats about what he'd do if I ever left. Every bruise and every broken thing and every time I thought he might actually kill us. The burner phone buzzes and I nearly drop it. Unknown number. I open the message and it's just a photo of our house with no words. The lights are on inside and I can see his truck in the driveway. My hands go numb and cold and I have to remind myself to breathe. I forward it to Faye like she told me to do with any contact attempts. She responds within 2 minutes saying she's documenting everything, and I should try to get some sleep. I set an alarm for 7 and try to close my eyes, but every sound makes me jump. A car door somewhere in the parking lot. Footsteps on the walkway outside. Voices from another room. Around 4 in the morning, I finally doze off sitting up against the headboard. I wake up every 20 minutes, jerking awake and grabbing for the phone. When light starts showing around the edges of the curtains, I give up on sleep completely. I take a shower in the tiny bathroom and the hot water feels like something I don't deserve. I stand under it anyway and let it run over my shoulders until the mirror is completely fogged. Faye knocks on the door at exactly 8 in the morning holding a cardboard carrier with 3 coffees and a paper bag that smells like breakfast sandwiches. She spreads my protective order paperwork on the small table by the window and helps me add more specific details and dates. She circles sections where I need to be more clear and writes notes in the margins about what the judge will want to know. Clara calls while we're working and Faye puts her on speaker. She says she'll meet us at the courthouse at 10 for the emergency hearing. We get the girls up and dressed in the donated clothes and they eat their breakfast sandwiches without complaining, even though Sophie usually hates sausage. At the courthouse, we go through the metal detector, and I'm terrified David will somehow be there, even though Faye keeps assuring me he's still in custody. We sit on a wooden bench outside the courtroom, and Clara goes over what will happen. I'll testify about the abuse and the threats. The judge will review the evidence from the hospital and the police report. If everything goes right, we'll get a temporary order today. She says the hearing itself might only take 20 minutes, but we should expect to wait because the docket is full. I watch every person who walks past, and my body tenses every time a man turns the corner. A clerk steps into the hallway and calls my name. My legs feel weak as we walk into the small courtroom. The judge sits behind a tall wooden desk, and a court reporter types at a machine in the corner. Clara stays with the girls in the front row while I walk to the witness stand. The judge is an older woman with gray hair pulled back, and she looks at me over her reading glasses. She asks me to state my name and address for the record. I give her the motel address, and my voice shakes. She starts asking questions about David, and I force myself to answer each one. I describe the night he threw the TV at my head. I tell her about the closet where he locks the girls when I try to call for help. I explain about the rifle he keeps in his truck, and the threats he makes when he drinks. My hands won't stop shaking, so I grip the edge of the witness stand. The judge asks me to describe what happened at the shelter last night. I walk her through every detail, starting with sneaking out while he was passed out. I describe Patricia refusing to help us, and David showing up with the rifle. The judge writes notes while I talk. She asks to see the hospital photos, and I watch her face get hard as she flips through them. She looks at the police report Officer Vega filed. She asks if the girls have been hurt directly, and I tell her about Sophie's teddy bear and the bruises on their arms from when he grabs them too hard. The whole thing takes maybe 15 minutes, and then she tells me to step down. A screen lights up on the wall, and David's lawyer appears on a video call. He's wearing a suit and sitting in an office somewhere. He starts talking about how I'm making things sound worse than they are. He says the photos from the shelter show the girls were fine and just scared because I was acting crazy. He claims I'm trying to turn the children against their father. I feel heat building in my chest, and my hands curl into fists. Faye reaches over and squeezes my hand hard. I stay quiet like she told me to. The lawyer keeps talking and says David loves his daughters and would never hurt them. He mentions Patricia gave a statement saying I'm manipulative and dramatic. He argues that David just had too much to drink and made a mistake by following us to the shelter. The judge listens without showing any reaction on her face. When the lawyer finishes, she thanks him, and the screen goes dark. The judge calls Officer Vega to the stand next. Vega walks up and raises her right hand to swear in. The judge asks her to describe what she saw when she responded to the shelter. Vega pulls out a small notebook and reads from it in a calm, professional voice. She describes my visible facial bruising and split lip. She notes the girl's obvious fear response when David's truck was mentioned. She explains that David failed the field sobriety test and was clearly drunk. She states that a hunting rifle was found in the vehicle within reach of the driver's seat. She adds that Patricia made inappropriate comments suggesting personal bias against me. The judge asks if the girls showed signs of abuse, and Vega describes the bruises on Sophie's arms and Elise's fearful behavior. She mentions the blood-stained teddy bear that was collected as evidence. The judge writes more notes and thanks Vega for her testimony. The judge looks at her papers for what feels like forever, but is probably only a minute. Then she starts reading from a form on her desk. She grants a temporary emergency protective order effective immediately. David cannot contact me or the girls in any way. He has to stay at least 500 feet away from us at all times. He must surrender all firearms to law enforcement within 24 hours. He can only see the girls through supervised visitation, and only if he completes an alcohol treatment program. I feel tears running down my face, but I don't know if it's relief or just pure exhaustion from everything. The judge keeps reading and adds that any violation will result in immediate arrest. She's setting bond conditions that include GPS monitoring so they can track where he goes. He cannot drink any alcohol at all. She schedules a full hearing for 2 weeks from today. Faye leans over and whispers that this is a really strong order, and David will face serious problems if he breaks any part of it. We walk out of the courtroom, and I'm holding copies of the protective order in my shaking hands. The girls are quiet and tired. Clara tells me she'll check in tomorrow and reminds me to call if anything happens. Faye walks us toward the courthouse exit. Outside on the steps, Letitia is waiting by a concrete pillar. She walks over to me, and her eyes look sad and sorry. She says Patricia's job is being reviewed by the board, and she personally apologizes for what happened at the shelter. She says the shelter failed to protect us, and that's unacceptable. Then she turns, and I follow her gaze to the parking lot. Patricia is standing near a silver car watching us. Letitia walks over to her, and I can't hear what they're saying, but Patricia's face goes completely white. She gets in her car and drives away fast. We take a taxi back to the motel because Faye has to get to another client. The driver doesn't ask questions when I give him the address. The girls fall asleep in the back seat during the short ride. At the motel, I carry Elise while Sophie walks beside me half asleep. Inside our room, I start gathering our few things into the donated bag. We need to pack up and get to the new shelter Letitia arranged. I'm folding the extra shirts when I glance out the window. My whole body goes cold. David's truck is pulling into the parking lot right now. He's out on bond already, and he's violating the protective order less than 3 hours after the judge issued it. I grab both girls and pull them toward the bathroom. My hands fumble with the burner phone, and I can barely make my fingers work. Sophie starts crying and asking what's wrong. I shut us in the bathroom and lock the door. I dial 911 with shaking fingers. The dispatcher answers and I whisper our location as quietly as I can. I describe David's truck and tell her he's violating an emergency protective order that was issued this morning. She tells me to stay on the line and I hear her radio crackling as she calls for officers. Through the bathroom door, I hear heavy footsteps outside our motel room. Then I hear his voice using that fake calm tone that makes my skin crawl. He says he just wants to talk. He says we can work this out. The girls press against me and I put my hand over Sophie's mouth to keep her quiet. The dispatcher keeps asking if I'm okay and I whisper yes. David tries the door handle and it rattles. He knocks hard 3 times. Police sirens start getting louder in the distance. I hear David swear loudly. His footsteps run away from our door. I peek through the bathroom door crack and see him running toward his truck through the window. 2 police cars pull into the parking lot with lights flashing. Officers jump out and intercept him before he can get in his truck. They grab his arms and spin him around. This time they're not gentle like last night. They push him against the hood of his truck and cuff his hands behind his back roughly. One officer searches him while another radios for backup. I watch through the window as they put him in the back of a patrol car. The motel security camera on the building corner recorded everything. Officer Vega's patrol car pulls up about 10 minutes later. She knocks on our door and identifies herself. I open it and the girls immediately run to me crying. Sophie won't let go of my leg. Elise is making that small whimpering sound again. Vega comes inside and closes the door behind her. She asks us to sit down and tell her exactly what happened. I explain about packing our things and seeing his truck pull in. I describe hiding in the bathroom and calling 911. She writes everything in her notebook. She explains that violating a protective order this fast shows the judge he's dangerous. She says they'll probably revoke his bond completely this time. She asks if we know how he found us. I pull out the burner phone and show her the photo text from last night with our house in it. She takes pictures of the text message with her phone. She says he must have followed us from the courthouse or tracked us somehow. She asks if he could have put a tracker on any of our belongings. I realize we left with nothing but the clothes we were wearing and the donated bag from the hospital. There's no way he could have tracked our stuff. He must have followed the taxi. Officer Vega asks if we saw where he got the location, and I show her the photo text from last night. She takes pictures of the message with her phone and explains David must have followed the taxi from the courthouse. She radios for someone to check the motel's exterior cameras. Sophie won't let go of my hand and Elise is shaking against my leg. Officer Vega tells us David is going back to jail with no bond this time. She says violating a protective order twice in one day shows he's dangerous. My burner phone rings while she's still talking and the screen shows Clara's number. I answer and Clara's voice is urgent. She says we need to move to the confidential shelter right now. David clearly has ways to find us that we don't understand yet. She's revising the safety plan over the phone. No school for the girls until we're completely secure. No contact with anyone who might accidentally tell him our location. I can hear her typing while she talks. She says Faye is already setting up transport to the new place. Officer Vega nods when I tell her what Clara said. She offers to wait with us until our ride arrives. The girls sit on the bed holding each other while I pack our donated bag again. We've only been here a few hours, but it feels like days. A knock on the door makes all 3 of us jump. Officer Vega checks through the peephole first. She opens it and Letitia walks in looking exhausted. She says she's driving us herself in an unmarked agency car. She can't trust anyone else right now. Officer Vega thanks her and leaves after making sure we have her direct number. Letitia helps me gather our few things. She keeps saying she's sorry over and over. I finally tell her to stop. Hank saved our lives when Patricia wouldn't. That matters more than anything else. She stops mid-apology and her eyes get wet. She promises Hank will be officially recognized for what he did. We walk out to her plain gray sedan in the parking lot. She has us get in quickly and locks the doors. The girls climb into the back seat and I sit up front. Letitia takes a complicated route through neighborhoods I don't recognize. She makes random turns and doubles back twice. She's checking the mirrors constantly. After about 30 minutes of driving, she finally relaxes a little. She explains the new shelter is in a different part of the city. It's in a regular neighborhood, so it doesn't stand out. Only a few people know the actual address. We pull up to a 2-story house with blue siding. It looks like every other house on the street. There's a small front porch and a fenced backyard. Nothing about it says shelter. Letitia walks us to the front door and rings the bell. A woman in jeans and a sweater answers. She smiles at the girls and introduces herself as the intake coordinator. Her voice is soft and calm. She leads us inside to a living room that actually looks like a living room. There are couches and a TV and kids' toys in a basket. She shows us down a hallway to a bedroom with 2 twin beds and a small bathroom attached. She explains this is our private space. The door has a lock we control from inside. There's a closet with hangers and drawers that are empty and waiting. She points out the window faces the backyard where the girls can play safely. For the first time since we left our house, I feel like I can take a full breath. The girls immediately claim their beds. Sophie puts her new stuffed dog on one pillow. Elise sits on the other bed and bounces a little to test it. The intake coordinator says dinner is in an hour and we should rest. Letitia hugs me before she leaves. She promises to call with updates. After everyone leaves, I lock our door and sit on Sophie's bed. I pull out the burner phone and stare at it for a long time. My mom's number is still saved in my memory from years ago. I haven't talked to her in 2 years because David cut me off from everyone. My finger hovers over the numbers. I finally dial. She answers on the second ring. Her voice says hello and I can't speak for a second. Then I say it's me. She makes a sound like crying and laughing together. I tell her we left and we're safe now. She asks if we need anything and I admit we need money. It hurts my pride, but the girls need clothes and supplies. She says she'll send it today. She doesn't say I told you so, even though she warned me about David years ago. She just says she loves us and she's proud of me. We talk for 10 minutes before I have to hang up. My hands are shaking when I put the phone down. That afternoon, Faye calls about the legal aid attorney. She set up a phone consultation for me in 20 minutes. The attorney calls right on time. Her name is Miss Rodriguez, and she handles family law cases. She explains the whole process for filing for custody and divorce. It sounds complicated and long. She says we need to document everything. She asks questions about our marriage and David's behavior. I answer while watching the girls color on paper the intake coordinator gave them. Miss Rodriguez says we'll meet in person next week to start the paperwork. Having actual steps to follow makes everything feel slightly less scary. The shelter has a child therapist who works here 3 days a week. She comes to our room after dinner and introduces herself as Miss Karen. She sits on the floor with Sophie and Elise. She teaches them safety words they can use if they feel scared. She explains that red means stop and talk to an adult. Yellow means take deep breaths. Green means they're okay. They practice saying the words. Then she pulls out a big poster board and colored stickers. She helps them make a feelings chart. Happy gets yellow stars. Sad gets blue circles. Scared gets red squares. Mad gets orange triangles. The girls stick the stickers on the chart and talk about when they feel each way. Sophie smiles when she puts a happy star on the board. It's the first real smile I've seen in days. Elise puts 3 scared squares in a row but then adds a yellow star next to them. Miss Karen says they're doing great. She'll see them again in 2 days. After she leaves, the girls keep looking at their chart. That evening, Letitia calls my burner phone. She says Patricia has been suspended without pay while they investigate. The shelter is reviewing all their intake procedures because of what happened. She tells me my complaint is formally documented now. It will be part of Patricia's permanent employment record. I know it's not enough punishment for almost getting us killed, but it's something. She says the whole organization is taking this seriously. Later that night, another call comes in. The screen shows a number I don't recognize. I almost don't answer, but something makes me pick up. A woman's voice introduces herself as the prosecutor on David's case. Her name is Miss M. Chen. She explains all the charges against him. Domestic violence and child endangerment from the original arrest. DUI from that night. 2 counts of violating a protective order from today. She says the combination shows a clear pattern. Judges take that seriously. She's setting up preliminary hearings for next month. She needs me to testify eventually, but not yet. She'll prepare me when the time comes. I write down the court dates she gives me. After I hang up, I sit on my bed and stare at the wall. The girls are already asleep in their beds. I start thinking about everything ahead. The court dates and testimony. The divorce process. Rebuilding our entire lives. I wonder if I'm actually strong enough to do all of this. A soft knock on the door makes me jump. I check through the peephole and see Faye standing there. I unlock the door and let her in. She asks how I'm doing, and I admit I'm scared. She sits next to me on the bed. She doesn't give me any fake positive speeches. She just reminds me that leaving was the hardest part. Everything else is just steps. 1 foot in front of the other. I nod and feel slightly better. She stays for a few more minutes, then leaves me to rest. I pull out a notebook the intake coordinator left for us. Clara mentioned keeping a detailed journal for court. I open to the first page and start writing. I write about the night he threw the TV. The times he locked the girls in the closet. Every threat he made about what would happen if I left. Every bruise and every broken object. My hand cramps after filling 6 pages. I make copies on the small printer in the common area. I put everything in the folder Faye gave me. I label it with the date and store it in our room's closet. Writing it all down helps me see that none of it was normal. I wasn't crazy for leaving. This was real abuse and we had every right to escape. That night, I check on the girls every hour like I've been doing since we got here. Around 2 a.m., I notice something different. Sophie and Elise are curled up together in one twin bed. They're breathing deep and even. Sophie's arm is wrapped around her sister, and Elise has her thumb in her mouth like she used to when she was a baby. I sit on my bed and watch them sleep for what feels like hours. They don't wake up when someone walks past our door. They don't flinch when a car door slams outside. They just keep sleeping. Their faces peaceful in a way I haven't seen in years. I stay awake anyway because my body won't let me relax. Every sound makes me tense up and look toward the door. I check the locks 3 times. I peek out the window to scan the parking lot. My heart races whenever I hear footsteps in the hallway. But I'm not spiraling or having a panic attack. I'm just alert. The next morning, when the girls wake up, Sophie mentions she had a dream about puppies instead of her usual nightmares. Miss Karen told me yesterday that hypervigilance is normal after trauma. She said my body learned to stay on guard to keep us safe, and it will take time and consistent safety for that response to decrease. I write that down in my journal so I can remember it when I feel broken. 3 days after we left the house, I pull out my journal during the girls' afternoon nap time. I write the date at the top of a new page and start making a list of everything that's happened. The emergency protective order is active and being enforced by the courts. David is in jail with his bond revoked after he violated it. Criminal charges are filed and moving forward with the prosecutor's office. CPS has a safety plan in place that focuses on keeping us together, not threatening to take my girls away. We have secure shelter with support services and counseling for all of us. Patricia faced real consequences for what she did and can't hurt other families now. I read through the list twice and add more details. The protective order covers me and both girls until the full hearing in 2 weeks. The criminal charges include domestic violence, child endangerment, DUI, and 2 counts of violating a protective order. The CPS safety plan has our location confidential and regular check-ins scheduled. The shelter provides meals, therapy, legal advocacy, and job search help. Patricia was suspended without pay and has a formal complaint in her file. It's not perfect, and I know the legal battle is just starting. But we're safer than we were 4 days ago when we were trapped in that house. I close the journal and put it in the folder with all our other documents. Then I make copies on the shelter's printer and store them in 2 different places. I pick up the burner phone and type out a text to Faye. Just 2 words. Thank you. She responds within seconds like she's been waiting to hear from me. The message says our legal aid appointment is tomorrow at 10 a.m. and the girls have their next therapy session the day after. She asks how we're doing and I tell her we're okay. I save the conversation so I can read it later when doubt creeps in. Then another text comes through from a number I recognize. Officer Vega. She says David's bond was revoked after the protective order violation, and he's being held in county jail pending trial. The judge denied any future bond because of the pattern of violence and the quick violation. She adds that I should still stay vigilant. But this is good news. I read her message 3 times and save it too. Having these concrete updates helps when my brain starts telling me nothing is really changing. I put the phone on the nightstand and notice my hands aren't shaking. Sophie wakes up from her nap and climbs onto my bed. She asks if we can get real ice cream now like I promised that night we left. I look at her sweet face and realize we actually can. The shelter has a small courtyard out back with picnic tables where residents can sit outside during the day. I tell both girls to put on their shoes and we walk down the hallway together. The coordinator at the front desk smiles at us and unlocks the courtyard door. We step outside into the afternoon sunshine, and I feel warmth on my face for the first time in days. Sophie and Elise run to the picnic table and climb up on the bench. I sit between them and we share a pint of vanilla ice cream from the shelter's freezer using plastic spoons. Sophie gets ice cream on her nose and Elise giggles. It's such a normal moment that I almost cry. I know the legal battle is just beginning and healing will take months or years. I know David is in jail right now, probably planning what he'll do when he gets out. I know we have court dates and therapy sessions and hard conversations ahead. But right now, in this moment, we're safe. We're together. We're eating ice cream in the sunshine. We're taking our lives back one small step at a time. That's the story for today. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen, because it makes telling these stories feel special. I hope it left you feeling a little bit lighter. Subscribe so we can keep finding the good moments together.